So much going on in this world. I just want to cover a few things that I think are important, and all of you probably already know much about it, and probably even more than myself. But one of the things that we might not be paying too close attention to is in Romania. So I'm just kind of going by memory here, but they had an election, but the parliament disqualified the outcome of the election. Probably more of a nationalist conservative individual. They didn't want that individual. So they just said, that doesn't count. And guess what? Who they're blaming? They're blaming Russia for disinformation and interference in the election process. So they just basically said, no, we're not going to pay attention to the will of the people. Now, this is so similar to what happened in 2020, and probably we haven't seen the end of this kind of globalism. The global elite that want to control and have more of a global identity. Then, you have the Klaus Schwabs and you have others that are involved in this, but they're kind of the front people, really. And so you have nefarious individuals and organizations. Bill Gates would be a very big contributor to this, of a global one world government that, you'll eat bugs and you won't own anything and you will enjoy it. So you can still see that they're trying to do this in other countries. Of course, the war in Ukraine with Russia is all a part of destabilization. It's so interesting. So let's take Syria now, for instance. Now, just doing a little bit of research and listening to a few things, I've known a little bit about this already. But of course, Syria, you had being propped up. Of course, Assad has been taken out. He and his family ruling for, not he, but the family for over 50 years or close to 50 years. And now he is out, probably in Russia. And the rebels, this is how kind of crazy this is. The rebels have been backed and supported by a big degree by Turkey. Yeah, by Turkey. Now, in Syria, you have mostly the Sunnis and a small portion of the Shias, and in Iran, you have just the opposite of that. So Iran was supporting Assad and his regime, and paying and sending missiles and paying money and arms to fight against their nemesis, Israel. But the rebels are being supported by Turkey, who also hates Israel. And then you have the Sunni Shia element as well, because in Iran you have just the opposite. You have more Shia and then less of the Sunnis, about the same proportion as you would in Syria. So the Persian element of Islam is much different than what you would have, more in the Middle East, right? So this could bode well for Israel, probably in the short term. I think there are two factors that this regime was able to be overtaken. One was the stabilization of the Iranian proxies in Syria by by Israel. They took care of business, and not only in Lebanon and taking care of mostly Hezbollah there, but doing a lot of damage in Syria as well. Well, the Russians were in Syria and had hundreds of troops there. When the Russians, they're fighting in Ukraine, they need people there to fight. When they kind of saw this spiral downhill, they got out of Dodge and they left Syria. And then that allowed the rebels to feel something. So the big losers in this is probably Iran and Russia, I would say. Of course, Assad. but there's some positive things with the rebels taking over. They cautioned people. They said, "Look, don't steal stuff from the palace. This is owned by the country, so don't take things. We still need to provide water and sewer and electricity. We still need to have a country. So let's not burn the place down." So it sounds like they want to be organized. Now, the U.S. got involved, which Trump has said we shouldn't be doing anything, but they hit some bases where Al Qaeda and ISIS had a group. So you get crazy things going on in Syria. Now, Damascus in Syria has huge biblical significance. Damascus is one of the oldest continual cities in the world, and it's gonna. Prophecy says it will be left desolate, basically. So we'll see what happens here, but it's a real pivotal point, and if you've been to northern Israel, you've looked into Syria, and I've been right on the border three times and looked into Syria. It looked into Lebanon. It's amazing how close. Israel's about the size of the state of New Jersey. It's strung out. It's long and narrow. But volume-wise, it's about that size. And so when you look at these other countries, of course, Lebanon's very small, but Syria's pretty good size area-wise. And it borders Iraq for the most part, Israel, and then Turkey, I think. I think that's how it goes. Turkey to the north, Iraq to the east, and you have Lebanon to the west to some degree, and Turkey, I think, too, and then to the south you have Israel and Jordan. So it's in a very strategic area, and it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. Now, the other factor I think in this is the election of Donald J. Trump. It's amazing the changes that have taken place. I don't know if any of you have seen much of the footage of Trump going to Notre Dame Cathedral. Sue and I got to see that in May, I think it was. We were there. Of course, it wasn't open yet, and we could only get to just see the outside. But quite a spectacular edifice. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And look forward to going back and seeing that, the inside, and feeling the spirit of that great building. But Trump's visit there, and the people who wanted to meet him, he's making a difference already, and decisions are being made. And in my opinion, this is really one of our real hopes to avoid World War III and nuclear attacks on either side, which would just destroy the earth. And it could happen in it could happen so fast, because Iran is close to the capability. Russia already is. We are. China, North Korea, I think India, and I can't remember what other country. Some other crazy country has it. But anyway, not crazy that people are crazy, but just one that you wouldn't expect, and I can't remember what it is. But these if these kind of things escalate, we could really see biblical proportion type devastation. So we'll see what happens. The Ezekiel wars in Ezekiel 37 and 38 will come from the north, and it's going to be a mess. I don't think we've seen anything like what has been prophesied. I do believe that has to happen before the Savior comes. So we're looking for events, I think primarily in the Middle East, that will give us an indication of the coming of the Savior. And I was listening to, in fact, I'll link this. I was listening to a YouTube channel, and I can't even remember the name of it right now, but I'll put the link to it. But it was so good. It was a woman that has written a book about Bethlehem, the Star of Bethlehem, and using that star and the alignment of that star that was created by a conglomerate of planets as the star that the wise men saw as a sign in the east, right? And how that sign will be a similar sign to prepare for his coming. The interesting thing about this is there's pretty good evidence that Herod was alive. And I might have this wrong, but around 4 BC, or maybe 5 BC, and then he was gone, dead at 4 BC that time period. So Christ had to have been born during Herod's time, and also when the wise men came, right? So he wasn't born at 0 or 1. There is no 0, so you start at 1. So his resurrection and his life, according to this lady, according to using a lot of different things, archaeological evidence, but also astronomical evidence, is that I think she said the year that he died was 28 AD, 28 AD. And so, and he was born, say 4 BC, after Herod. So Herod was still alive, then Herod dies. It might have been 6 BC, now that I think of it. Anyway, it's one of those. I'll put the link again. I'll do that so you can watch it. It's over an hour long, but it's really good. I think the way she approaches it and the gal interviewing her, I think they brought up some really, really good information on this that's worth listening to. So the Feast of Trumpets in September, usually, sometimes October, depending on how it falls, but Rosh Hashanah is when he would have been born. That's where the sign was. That's when he would have been born, is in September. And we also have the beginnings of the restoration with the visit of Moroni during that same time period in 1820. Was it 1822? I can't remember. 23 maybe. Can't remember the year. But it was in September, and it was on the Jewish feast of the Feast of Trumpets. And so this is interesting stuff. And so if that's when he was born, her idea is that the wise men got there in December. Now I know we would think differently as Latter-day Saints. We think it was a few years or a year or two later, and the visit could have been in Nazareth, or it could have been in Bethlehem by the wise men. We know the wise men weren't there at the manger, that we would say the manger scene that we think of. We like the wise men there, we like the shepherds there, but they weren't there for that, and everyone can agree on that. The timing of when they got there would be interesting. It's really not that far. They probably came from Persia, modern day Iran, and that's why we bring this up. And they were called wise men. If you look in the book of Daniel, so Daniel would have been, what would he have been? About 700 BC, I think. This was the Babylonians. So this would have been 600 BC, around the time of Lehi. And he's taken into Babylon, and then the Persians take over Babylon, or modern day Iran, or Iraq. So Iran takes over Iraq, let's say, and that's when you have King Cyrus, and Daniel is in this picture. Well, there are wise men. It mentions it right in the book of Daniel. There are wise men. So a lot of this could have been taught by Daniel and others that knew the signs, that recorded the signs, what to look for, and then that got passed down, because these wise men, most certainly, the Magi came from the east. They came from Persia, more than likely, and they were looking for the King of Israel, the King of the Jews, the promised Messiah. And they went to Jerusalem, which is interesting. There's also some conjecture, because they were looking for Bethlehem, but if you read it correctly, or if you read it carefully, I should say, not correctly, it doesn't say they went to Bethlehem. So read that. It's kind of interesting, but it insinuates that Bethlehem is in play, right? And the scholars of Herod, they were asking, well, where's the Messiah going to be born? I think it's in Micah, I believe, that says that he'll be born in Bethlehem. And this gets into the prophecy of Jeremiah, where Rebecca will weep for her children. This is where Rebecca was buried, or excuse me, Rachel was buried. Rachel will cry for her children, or something like that, mourn for her children. Well, she's buried there. And this is where Herod slaughters the babies. And the reason why we think it might be 2 years is because he says anyone born to 2 years old. So he's got this window there of infants that he wants dead to not compete with him and to kill. So we have a lot of interesting things. Now, one thought that I've had, and this is just a thought, but been to Nazareth and been to the Church of Annunciation, where it was announced to both Mary and then later to Joseph by Gabriel that she would conceive. And you think of him as a sign, you think of him as a light. And, perhaps that's where the wise men went, was actually Nazareth. Because by then, you would think that Joseph and Mary would have worked their way back to where they were from, where they lived in Nazareth. And it was from there that perhaps they left to Egypt. as they were warned to go. So there's a lot of things we don't understand, but there's a lot of connections between Persia or Iran and the wise men and coming. This is also where we get the religion of Zoroastrians, which came about the same time, the beginnings of that, which is really interesting. And we have the phrase, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. That's kind of the saying, I guess, for Zoroastrians. And if you go to, I don't know if I can find it here, but it's King. Yeah, I turned right to it. How lucky is that? Okay, so this is towards the end of King Benjamin's sermons, and he says, "But this much I can tell you." So this is in Mosiah 4:30. Mosiah 4, chapter 4, verse 30. "But this much I can tell you, that if you do not watch yourselves and your thoughts and your words and your deeds." Your thoughts, your words, your deeds. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. If you don't, it's just such a coincidence that King Benjamin, right? Yeah, King Benjamin says this, and you'd go, well, how could that fit in with the Zoroastrians? Well, it easily could, because this is around the same time as we have this destruction of Jerusalem. You have the prophet Jeremiah. You have the exiles going to Babylon, the prisoners, if you will, and then you have Lehi and his family leaving. Well, this could have been a source for this, and then it ends up in Babylon, and then it goes to Persia when they take over, and then this becomes this idea of good thoughts, good words, good deeds. The same way, and then Lehi brings it here because he lived around the same time, and then he would have passed it down through Nephi and whatnot, and it's watch your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Anyway, that's just kind of another interesting tie-in. So we have this, all these things going on still. You in the Middle East, we'll see what happens in Syria. We'll see what happens in Ukraine. Now we haven't even talked about the Russia and Ukraine thing, but the globalists aren't going to want that war to end. They only want to escalate. They've controlled, in my opinion, the current administration in the United States, and he has done nothing but escalate that war there. It's just so stupid. And as it gets closer to the inauguration of President Trump, I think we'll see an escalation of the globalists wanting to create more and more chaos and more divisiveness amongst countries. So I say short-term, Syria is in a better situation than they were getting rid of Assad. Long-term, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. I think our country is going to be blessed under the leadership of President Trump. I think we're seeing some amazing things already. We had the young Marine who was found not guilty yesterday. Whenever you see this, I don't know, but recently, I'll just say. And so far, no major riots broke out. I think that's significant. I think it shows the people don't want that anymore. They don't want to see the George Floyd situation. And they see the justification in people defending themselves. and helping prevent things happening to other people by being proactive. I think this is huge. I think the other local news, or not local, but big news, is the young man that was caught that shot the CEO of United Healthcare in New York. I don't think we've heard the end of this thing yet. The interesting thing about this is how did he track and know where that guy was going to be at that time and everything about him? Now, some people post stuff on social media, and so you can track them that way. If this guy making 10 million a year, not that that's like, I mean, it's a lot of money, right? But many people make a lot more. Oh, the other guy I was thinking of is a globalist, George Soros. I forgot his name for a second, or for a minute, but George Soros. There's quite a group of them that want to be godlike and control people and things. And then there's a whole bunch of others that are behind the scenes that are really pushing this globalism and kind of anti-nationalism. And this is where Trump is like a fly in the ointment. He's causing them issues, and I think they're going to be desperate to do something. So back to this guy that shot this young man, 20-something-year-old, very educated, good-looking guy, and he shoots the CEO of United Healthcare, and knowing and tracking him, is very interesting. I think we'll find some things out about that. So that's unfolding. We'll probably see more of these kind of things. The sad thing is the response of some people of thinking that was a good thing that happened when because of the corruption in insurance companies or whatever. We've got to dial this back, this violence, but obviously speak out when there's unjust things done, but we got to dial this back. So I think that's those are the main things I wanted to cover in this video, kind of current events, tying them to so many things this time of year. One of the things this lady that talked about the Star of Bethlehem and tying it into the second coming is the idea of celebrating Christmas or the December 25th, and she said many Christians, and she's a very devout Christian. She said, we sometimes say that's a pagan holiday, we shouldn't do it, but she said, it's actually there's good evidence that could have been when the wise men actually made it to see the Savior. And this particular year, it's Hanukkah, the feast of lights, and He is the light of the world. Jesus is, and so we can say December 25th and use it. And really, the pagan aspect would probably be on the solstice, which is a few days before, and it's that every year. So that would be more of a pagan thing, and I know it's close, but the winter solstice. But regardless, one thing you learn when you travel to some of these just amazing sites, wonders of the world, and whether it's Stonehenge or the pyramids or Luxor, just famous cathedrals, just these places that are on such sacred ground, Chartres Cathedral, other places. One thing you realize is that quite often these sites were inhabited before there was a cathedral built or there was something else, there was a what we could say maybe a pagan element on there at that site. Well, that it at first you go, oh, well, we don't want anything to do with the pagans. Well, they felt something too, and so you all of a sudden realize that we're connected, and we're connected in many different ways. And the energy of the earth, we know the earth has a spirit, it was created spiritually. And those ley lines, those energy lines, and those the things that attract us as Christians also attracted other people. And they were the original source, Adam and Eve, had the light, and they had the understanding. And then as the earth was destroyed, Noah and his family remained, and the truth was there, the light was there. And as they repopulated the earth and went out, things absolutely got corrupted, but there was an element of it. So my thing has been for the last several years is look at the things that we have in common versus the things that we're so far apart on, and let's see what happens. And this idea of December 25th is really kind of a cool thing, because Hanukkah falls, it's more on a the lunar calendar, and so it's not gonna be on the exact same day every year. But this particular year, it goes through and is actually includes December 25th this year, so that's kind of cool. And so we have a connection with our Jewish brothers and sisters with all the Jewish feasts, but Hanukkah is the menorah stays lit, the oil, the whole story about that is pretty awesome, pretty cool. So we'll look for these sacred sites, these connections, to see why we are all attracted. So why was a cathedral built in a certain place where they know for a fact that there were druids or others that built a site at the exact same place? It's because of the sacredness and the energy of the area. We do that as Latter-day Saints. We talk about different sites. The first vision, the sacred grove. Okay, now you can say, well, the event is what made that sacred. Okay, I would agree with that. But is it just by chance that it was at that site? I don't think so. Was it just by chance? That these sacred events took place in certain areas. It was just like, well, that's where they were. So, I think there can be an element to that, but I think quite often it's because it not only has this situation been foreordained, but the place has been foreordained in many, if not most, cases of significance that have eternal consequences, that have dispensational consequences. These are going to be sacred places, and you're going to feel it. Now, I'm a big believer. I remember it was Dr. Laura who used to say, I don't care how you feel, and she'd make a big deal about that. And that always kind of bothered me, because I go by how I feel around somebody, how I feel at a certain place, what kind of energy is coming out here, and this kind of thing. And so, I don't want to get, too new age about it. I'm not talking about that. But you can say, well, I feel a sacredness in the temple. Well, you could say, well, it's only because it's been dedicated. Really? That's it? Okay. I think that's absolutely an element to it. But okay, it's what goes on in there. Okay, that's awesome too. But there's a this is my opinion. I think all these temples during the millennial reign are going to be connected, and they're in certain places for certain reasons, and it will be a way to disseminate information and spiritual understanding is through these kind of created portals, if you will, the temples to the heavens, and a connection. And it'll be a way for the Savior to communicate to us wherever He is. And obviously we can receive, whatnot, but personally through prayer and everything else. But there's going to be a purpose for these temples dotting the earth. And it's not just for right now so people have access to it. I believe that's the case. But I think there's a bigger picture for these. And I think the template for that is these magnificent sites throughout the world. You have Teotihuacan in Mexico. It's on a perfect grid alignment and lines up with the temple or the pyramid complex in Giza. You have Stonehenge in the mix. You have the stones in northern France that are part of this grid system of energy and these sacred sites that travel the globe. And it's just so fascinating as you discover these things, because you realize that there's a reason that certain things happen at certain places, and ultimately we're celebrating the birth of the Savior in a couple of weeks, few weeks. And in addition, we're looking forward to His second coming to the earth in power and glory. And there's going to be specific places and specific events at specific places that we need to pay attention to. And as we do that, we prepare our hearts and our minds for what we need to do. We're kinder to people around us. We serve people better because we're thinking on a higher plane. We conduct our lives in a more spiritual manner because we're thinking of this. I will argue with people all day long. I will not contend, but I will, because people will say, well, you really shouldn't be so focused on the second coming. Just live your life now and be the best person you can be, and all things will happen. Well, that's interesting because, we have that little phrase, wise men still seek Him. Well, if we're not looking, and we're commanded to watch and look and pay attention. And so if we're not doing that, and we're just like, well, I'm just going to be the best person I can be, but I'm not really worried about when Jesus comes, we're going to miss the signs. The wise men would have missed the signs if that's what they would have been doing. They were paying attention, they were studying, and they were learning. So that's one of the purposes of this channel. And I know I get into other things and things that are, that I have questions about, in the church and what's going on and why is it this way and not that way. And, that's just my nature. I just do. I ask questions. I think there's a difference between questioning everything and then having a question. And I think I have questions, or I have a question, and sometimes I have multiple questions. But I'm not questioning everything, and I feel like sometimes I get accused of that. But, it's we are who we are. We can change to some degree, but we still have that element of uniqueness. And I think that's where I'm coming from. All right, I've rambled enough. I love you all. God bless. We'll talk to you very soon. And keep up the good work. Keep studying and learning. I'll put that link to that other video. It's really, really good. I'll put it in the comment section and I'll pin it so it'll be the first comment, and you can click that on and watch it when you get a minute, when you get an hour. It's a little bit long, but it's good. It's really good. God bless. Talk to you soon. Bye.